Hi, I just want to welcome everybody to my house. I'm so excited. We already have 12 classes already for this year, so contributed and sponsored. So I'm so excited. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming. Everyone's always welcome, and that's it. That's my speech.
Okay, wonderful. Quick and to the point, and I have to say congratulations, Mazal Tov, everything, and Bruchot Atem, that I couldn't believe it. First of all, the ingenious idea that Batsheva had, that instead of each individual lady sponsoring a shiur, that it should be divided among a bunch of women to give you all the zechut to be able to contribute to this tremendous undertaking. And like Batsheva said, within 5 to 7 minutes, you all gathered together and you all contributed and donated. And Baruch Hashem, we've got a whole year of classes already in advance covered for the whole of next year. Prepaid Torah, exactly. Prepaid Torah.
And you know, sorry to interrupt, but it's contributions and people just coming.
That's it, and the people are continuing to contribute, Baruch Hashem. So first of all, I want to thank you all for going out of your way and for making this happen. Ashrechem. There is a reason why the Gemara says, and in the merit of the Jewish women, Mashiach is going to come. Look what you're doing. Look what you're doing.
Woman is more powerful than men.
Oh, you're going to learn that tonight. We're going to learn that tonight. We're going to learn that tonight. So, and my second announcement that I wanted to tell you is that we have officially moved, I have officially moved from Brooklyn to New Jersey, to Lakewood, New Jersey. In Lakewood, and we bought a house, and we are now in the process. We just finished construction for the new Ohel Sarah base a few days ago. There were 2 rooms. That there's a whole Hashgacha Pratit story. I had some guys coming to. Hi, how are you? I had a realtor who was very, very kind, and she said, "You know what? I have this guy that does like handyman work. He's a contractor. I'm sure he'll give you a good deal on the little things that you need." And he came in and I said, "Do me a favor, Jimmy." He's an Italian guy. I said, "Jimmy, we had like a wall that separates one room from the next. And my dream was to knock down the wall to make one huge room for all our events and all the shiurim and all the parties and everything. We could fit a lot of ladies." I said, "Jimmy, please give me a quote how much it's going to cost us to break down the whole wall, make one huge room." And he says, "Well, what do you got to knock down the wall for?" So at that time, Ruti had bought me, just when I had moved in the first day, a mat by the door that had our Ohel Sarah logo on it. So that every person who walks in should feel like he's going straight into the tent of Sarah. So I took this Jimmy guy outside and I said, "Look at this. You see what it says here? It says Ohel Sarah." Now he's an Italian. He goes to church every Sunday. And I said, "Sarah was Abraham's wife. We're told, our rabbis tell us, that the tent of Abraham and Sarah, it was always open to everybody. And here," I said, "why do I want to break down this wall? Because I want to make a big room for all the women to come and to help them, young women, older ladies, to bring happiness to their life, to teach them a little bit about the Bible." He was so touched. I'm not going to tell you how much he charged me, but let's just say we'll call it peanuts.
Really? A third of everybody.
A peanuts. I said, "Wow, that's an amazing price." He says, "Because I believe in what you're doing. I believe in." Oh, and when he finished knocking down the whole wall, he didn't call me. He sent me a picture via WhatsApp, and he says, "Sarah, look at your tent." And the whole shape, all of a sudden we saw the shape of the ceiling was all like a tent, triangular throughout the whole thing. He was so amazed. I was crying. I was like so. I want to thank you because we had a campaign and we still have the campaign. And I'm telling the Torah Anytime people, those who donated to our amazing cause of this. David Hanania Pinto gave us a tremendous blessing for this, so we started to collect money for the renovations, for everything. Baruch Hashem, checks are coming in, and we're still, anyone who wants to donate could log on to www.ohelsara.com and make your donations for the new house of Sarah. Okay, this year, amen, amen, it should be with Mazel Bemet. Our first event is already, we didn't want to wait. It's already going to be Bezat Hashem in Lakewood, New Jersey. Oh, July 31st on a Wednesday, the night before Rosh Chodesh Av. We're having already an event there. So Baruch Hashem, things are already happening. This shiur is dedicated first and foremost, unfortunately, I don't know if you heard, but the last time that we got together, we mentioned for the Refuah Shlema of that little girl, Chava Shalva Gavriela, and unfortunately we got the tragic news that this little girl did not make it. These are Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban. So this shiur was dedicated Leilui Nishmat Chava Shalva Gavriela Bat David Yitzchak Alevi Alea Shalom. Her neshama, it says when HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes a precious soul, a child, that's anyone who's under 20, first of all, it's a call to the parents, and second of all, such a precious neshama cries before the Kisei Kavod for Hashem to bring the Mashiach. It's also, this shiur was dedicated for the Zivug, Bezat Hashem. This year, Bekarov Mamash, of Eliana Yafa Rivka Bat Esther, and Liora Dodi Bat Esther. And also for the Refuah Shalema of Yitzchak Ben Libby, and my mother's boss, who's very, very, very sick, unfortunately, Refuah Shalema to Mordechai Ben Mazal, Refuah Shlema Bimhera Beyamenu. Ladies, this week's parasha is Balak. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. These words were said by one of the greatest anti-Semites bent on our destruction. Bilam said it. Instead of destroying us, he uttered the best compliment about our people. Although he intended to curse the Jewish nation, Bilam ended up saying words that have become so central in Jewish literature that many of the Sidurim that we use begin with this phrase, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Bilam, our enemy, was impressed by two things. You see, even though Bilam was a very wicked man, he was a big prophet. And what he uttered was a prophecy, and it was a great revelation. We cannot discount his words just because he was a goy. The words actually came from Hashem through Bilam's mouth. And what did he say? He spoke about two things that are probably the key to the survival of the Jewish people. Although his intent was to destroy us, he ended up providing us with the secret to what sustains us as a nation. He talks about the Ohalim of Yaakov, the tents of Jacob, and the Mishkenotecha Yisrael, the dwelling places of Israel. Chachamim tell us that Bilam was referring to two different institutions that are both integrally important and connected. Ohalecha Yaakov refers to the Jewish home, the tents in which the Jewish people live and build their families. In the olden days, we lived in tents. The homes were ohalim. So what's Mishkenotecha Yisrael? Rabbanim explain that the word mishkenotecha means, it comes from the Hebrew word mishkan. Mishkan represents the shuls, the places where the Shekhinah HaKdosha rests. The tabernacle in the Midbar was called a Mishkan. Mishkan refers to the houses of worship, like the Bet HaMikdash is a perfect example of a Mishkan. So Bilam was saying that the two institutions that are integral and that deserve a compliment, he says, Ma tovu, is the Jewish home and the Jewish temple. The question is, why does Bilam put these two institutions in the same pasuk? Granted, they're both homes, but one is the home of the Jewish family and the other is the home of God. Clearly, they are not the same. If Bilam wanted to praise the Jewish home, he should have praised it separately from the Jewish temple. But for some reason, he made a connection between these two institutions and he combined them in one sentence, in one pasuk. So, why is the Jewish home and the Mishkan next to each other? What's the connection between the two? Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Israel. What's the connection between the Jewish home and the Mishkan? Furthermore, there's a Gemara, a famous Gemara of Berachot that says, HaMesameach, this is for the two girls, Bezat Hashem, HaMesameach Chatan veKala, Ki'ilu bana achat mechurvot Yerushalayim. A person who attends a wedding and makes the Chatan and Kala happy, whichever way they decide to make them happy, it could be dancing, it could be just going over to them and giving them some encouraging words, it could be the check that you leave in the envelope, but that person leaves the wedding with credit. What kind of credit? Ki'ilu bana achat mechurvot Yerushalayim. That mitzvah is counted as if you helped to build the ruins of Yerushalayim. See, Yerushalayim was a glorious city filled with thousands of Jewish homes. Those homes were destroyed many times over. That's the Churvot Yerushalayim. So you receive credit as if you built one of these ruins. Question is, why would anyone want to build the ruins? I mean, the Gemara should have said, he who makes the Chatan and Kala happy, it's as if he's building a new home. What does it mean to build one of the ruins of Yerushalayim? In order to understand this, we need to learn a fundamental Ramban, alav shalom, who writes that there are 4 parshiyot in Sefer Shemot that primarily discuss the building of the Mishkan. Parashat Teruma, Parashat Tetzaveh, Parashat Vayakel, and Parashat Pekudei. And what's the purpose of building the Mishkan? The purpose of building the Mishkan was to draw down the Shekhinah to this earth. That's what the pasuk says. Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. You see, after the Chet HaEgel, the Shekhinah departed and it ascended up to the heavenly realms. So an edifice was needed with all the details and all the technicalities in order for the Shekhinah to come back down and rest in this holy abode. And more than that, rest in the people's hearts. Because it says, V'shachanti betocham. The pasuk doesn't say, V'shachanti betocho. Rather, betocham. The Shekhinah was meant to rest within all the Jewish people. So the Ramban asks us to take notice of the homes, since we're talking about Mishkan, the homes of the Avot HaKedoshim. He writes that the Shekhinah was also in the homes of the Avot, in their tents. So the Mishkan was only a replica of the energy of the Shekhinah that was in the homes of the Avot. That means the Mishkan was only secondary to the homes of the Avot. after the home of the Avot no longer existed because they departed from this world, we wanted to replicate their homes. We wanted to have a commemoration of what their homes looked like. So when you went into the Mishkan, you were feeling a small sense of what the house of the Avot were like. The homes of the Avot were like temples, where there was a tremendous concentration of the Shekhinah. And the Mishkan was meant to duplicate that aura. And then when the Shekhinah descended upon the Mishkan, believe it or not, it says, Chachamim tell us, it still wasn't the same as the home of the Avot. So there's a connection we see here between Sefer Shemot and Sefer Bereshit. Because Sefer Bereshit talks about the Mishkan of a Jewish home. And Sefer Shemot discusses the physical structure of Hashem's Mishkan. Both, however, have the same result. That being the idea of V'shachanti betocham, where Hashem comes down, the Shekhinah is drawn down. So the Gemara tells us that when Yitzchak Avinu alav shalom brought Rivka Imenu into his mother's tent after she had passed away, he felt consoled. What could have consoled him? The Gemara says that there were 3 miracles that took place in Sarah Imenu's tent. First, when Sarah lit Shabbat candles, the flame remained lit the entire week. Now think about this miracle, because the Maccabim, during the Chag of Chanukah, they found a small canister of oil that was meant to last for how long? 1 day, and it lasted for how long? 8 days. But Sarah's miracle was greater than the miracle of Chanukah, because every week a candle that was meant to last just a few hours lasted for 7 days every week. Can you imagine? But when Sarah Imenu died, the flame of the candle died out with her. That's the first miracle. Secondly, in the home of Sarah, bread was always baked, and Sarah's dough never spoiled. It remained fresh and hot the entire week. Now, the fact that it remained fresh is clearly a miracle, because bread without preservatives spoils a lot faster. Try leaving a piece of bread on your counter for 3 days. What happens? It starts to grow moldy. But Sarah's bread remained fresh from week to week. That was the second miracle. The third miracle was that there was a cloud of glory that rested on top of Sarah's tent. When you walked by Sarah's tent, you saw a certain presence. There was a certain cloud that made you aware that in that place where that cloud was looming, the presence of God was there. The Shekhinah could visibly be seen above Sarah's tent. But when Sarah died, the bread became stale and the cloud moved away. But then, when Yitzchak brought his new wife into his mother's tent, suddenly, the flames of the candles began to burn again. The cloud of glory suddenly reappeared, and the bread that was baked remained fresh. That's when Yitzchak felt consoled, not only concerning his mother, but also consoled about the wife that he had just married. Because the 3 items that returned to their miraculous state was like a stamp of approval regarding Rivka. It showed Yitzchak that his wife was a righteous woman. That's Sefer Bereshit. Let's look at Sefer Shemot. In Sefer Shemot, Am Yisrael was busy building the Mishkan. And there are parallels, by the way, between the homes of the Avot and the Mishkan. Now that I give you the example of Sarah, let's look at the parallels. First of all, there was a menorah in the Mishkan that was lit. Even though the flames of the menorah didn't burn from week to week, however, there was a certain candle that was called Ner HaMa'aravi, according to some Mefarshim, the Ner HaMa'aravi was the center flame of the 7-branch menorah. In the Mishkan we had 7 branches, 3, and 1 in the center. The same amount of oil that was put into the 6 containers was also placed into the holder of the Ner HaMa'aravi. Every morning when the Cohen came back, all the other 6 flames were extinguished, but their center flame remained lit. It kept burning. Not only did it keep burning, but they used to keep using the light, the flame, to keep lighting all the other 6 branches. That's a miracle. So that miracle was a replica of what took place in the tents of the Avot. In the Bet HaMikdash, there was bread that was baked called Lechem HaPanim, the showbread. The showbread had to be placed on a special table, and it sat there for a week. At the end of the week, the new shift of Kohanim would take over the service of the Kohanim before them. When those Kohanim came, the bread that sat on that table for a week was distributed among those Kohanim. Now, I ask you, who would want to take home bread that's been sitting out for a week? Would you? Well, we're told that the bread remained fresh and hot as if it was just taken out of the oven. That's a miracle, just like the miracle in the tents of the Avot that the dough never spoiled. The third thing is that in the Mishkan, you clearly saw the presence of God. There was a special cloud that rested over the Mishkan. Like where? Like who? Sarah. So when we hear that these miracles happened in the Mishkan, we have to remember that the Avot lived with these daily and weekly miracles on a constant basis. So clearly there's a correlation between the Mishkan and the Jewish home, where if a Jewish home is established correctly, it's possible to have the same presence of the Shekhinah like it was in the Mishkan.
What is established correct?
We're going to talk about it. So if that's the case, I want to share Chidush with you. Don't worry, I think of all the questions that the ladies might have, and then I try to be not one step ahead of the game. I'm like a chess player. You have to be several steps ahead. But I don't play chess. I just play Bible chess, right? So, here's the Chidush. When it says in the Gemara, Kol ha-mesameach chatan ve'kala, that if you made a chatan and kala happy, it's as if you've built achat mechurvot, one of the ruins of Yerushalayim. What do you think one of the ruins means? Because the Gemara should have said, it's like you built a ruin. What is this achat? Obviously the word achat refers to something specific, because if I say one of these, I'm referring to a specific one and not just any one. When you're mesameach chatan v'kala, it's not that you're helping to build any of the ruins. It's as if you're building achat mechurvot. Achat means a specific one, a special one. So my question to you ladies is, what in your opinion would be the most special ruin of Yerushalayim? What? The Bet HaMikdash. The Bet HaMikdash. The Mikdash was also a ruin. That means that when you're building a Jewish home, it's tantamount to building a Bet Mikdash, to building a Mishkan. Because if a Jewish home is built correctly, and according to the proper traditions and ingredients, that's considered a miniature Bet Mikdash. You with me? We're still going to get to the details, don't worry. As a matter of fact, Rav Levi Yitzchak from Berditchev Alav Shalom wrote the following in one of his sefarim. Listen to this. You ready? Listen to this. Ki atidin batei Yisrael sheilchu le'eretz Yisrael Bizman Mashiach b'mhera b'yamenu amen. These are his words. You could say amen. Amen. What is the Berditchev Rebbe saying? He's saying that there's a Gemara in Megillah that tells us that when Mashiach comes, all the shuls are going to be uprooted from wherever they may be, and they're going to be replanted in Eretz Israel. When Mashiach comes, all the shuls around the world are going to be uprooted, and a place is going to be found for them somewhere in Israel.
Everybody Reform Orthodox.
Well,
That's a chess play.
that's it. That's a chess move. That's a chess move. So try to imagine now how many shuls we're talking about. Try to imagine how many. And as we continue, you'll figure it out on your own if it includes Reform and Conservative. But anyway, and even maybe I have news for you. Even some Orthodox shuls are not going to be counted. I can guarantee you that. Okay, but anyway, try to imagine the shuls we're talking about. Guess what? The Berditchever Rebbe says that the homes of the Jewish people are also going to be relocated. So the Talmidim asked the Rebbe, they said, Rebbe, there's no Gemara that talks about what you just said. It only talks about the shuls. It doesn't talk about the houses being relocated, just the shuls. So how do you know that our homes are going to be uprooted also and that they're going to be relocated to Eretz Yisrael? How do you know? There's no Gemara like this. And the Berditchever Rebbe said, Kal v'chomer bebatei Yisrael. What does that mean? He says, if the shuls are going to be relocated, kal v'chomer, certainly the Jewish homes are going to be relocated. And they said, why certainly? Why certainly? Because if I'd ask you, which is holier, a shul or a home? What would you answer? Most of you say, of course, a Bet Knesset.
Depends on number.
But the Berditchever Rebbe tells us that the shuls, like this, they are a place where we gather to pray the various tefillot, Kriyat Shema, Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit. It's a place that's designated for prayer at certain times of the day. But, he says, Batei Yisrael, the homes of Israel, sheyesh bahem harbe mitzvot deoraita. A Jewish home is filled with mitzvot that we were commanded straight, direct from the Torah. For example, our homes have mezuzot. That's a mitzvah ta'aseh deoraita. A shul does not require a mezuzah, even though you'll see one, but doesn't require a mezuzah. In a Jewish home, the Birkat Hamazon is recited after a bread meal. That's a mitzvah ta'aseh deoraita. We learn Torah in our homes. We have these shiurim, which already been paid for in advance for the next year. We give tzedakah, that is a mitzvah aseh deoraita. We do so much chesed in our homes. There are mitzvot from the Torah that are being fulfilled in a Jewish home that are not being done in a Bet Knesset. But the mitzvot that we perform in a shul, says the Berditchever Rebbe, are primarily rabbinical mitzvot, like prayer. The mitzvot, however, that we engage in our homes are primarily mitzvot from the Torah direct. So, says the Berditchever Rebbe, if the place where you perform rabbinical mitzvot will end up in Eretz Yisrael, kal v'chomer, certainly the Jewish home is even greater and will also have a part in that relocation. So we see that Chachamim always drew a parallel line between a Jewish home and the Bet Knesset, or the Bet Midrash, the Bet Mikdash, the Mishkan. They saw that these holy edifices and the Jewish home, they are very closely related. And we see this clearly in the Mishnah of Pirkei Avot that says, Yehei betcha bet va'ad lachachamim. What does this mean? The Rabbanim were telling us, this is the answer, all your questions, the question, this is all. The Rabbanim were telling us how to build a proper Jewish home. They said, Yehi betcha. Your house should be a bet va'ad. What does a bet va'ad mean? Bet va'ad means a place where people can come to congregate. This is like a bet va'ad. We come here Every month. So the Rabbanim are telling us, the place where people come though and congregate, we know what that's called. It's called a shul. That's where people come to congregate to pray. So basically, the Mishnah is telling you that you have to transform Beitcha, your house, into a Bet Va'ad. If your home possesses the proper ingredients of spirituality, then there is no difference between a Bet Va'ad, which is a shul, and Beitcha. It's the same. That's step number one. Obviously, it's not just to congregate and schmooze and have a beer and, snacks, and there's more involved.
I have liquor.
No, we don't do liquor. According to Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, listen, get a load of this one. The Jewish home is even greater than a shul, because there's more being done on a constant basis. The mitzvot that are performed in your home are considered greater than the ones that are done in a Bet Knesset. You hear this? So if that's the case, we can now understand what Bilam said about the Jewish people. He said, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. He spoke about the Ohel and about the Mishkan because he saw a connection between them. He said, these two institutions, Ohalecha Yaakov and Mishkenotecha Yisrael, they are actually the same. They are one. Where a Jewish family lives is where God is supposed to live. And they both have the same consequence. But I ask you, which of the two do you think Bilam was more impressed by? The Ohel or the Mishkan?
The Ohel.
Why?
Because he was looking at him that they were facing, the entrances were facing each other.
But based on the Pasuk, how do we know?
It says Ohalecha.
What? How does he say Ohalecha?
Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov.
He mentions Ohalecha Yaakov. Ohalecha Yaakov, because first Bilam praised the Ohalim, and then he praised the Mishkan. So now, based on all these perushim, we now know that the tents of the Avot were the primary place where the Shekhinah rested. The Mishkan was only secondary, we said. So clearly there's a connection between the two. Once we learn this fact, we can move on to stage 2. So the first stage is knowing that there is a connection between your home and a Mishkan. But there's more. You see, if you were Zoiche to be married and have a Jewish home, then knowing what we just learned should give you a great sense of responsibility, because you and your husband are actually ministering your own temple. The Jewish home is a sanctuary. Today, unfortunately, the Jewish home is being assaulted by all sorts of foreign cultures that have penetrated the Jewish home. And Chachamim tell us that when we bring, and again, it's not me, I'm just telling you what Chachamim tell us. It's going to be a little difficult to hear this, but listen to what they say. They say, when we bring foreign ideologies and cultures into our home that are not at all in line with Torah values, it's like what the Greeks did in the Bet HaMikdash when they entered it. Well, what did they do? What did they do? They're comparing it to the Greeks. So what did they do? The Greeks took a chazir and they sacrificed it on the Mizbeach. Now, in order to bring it down to your daily lives, try to imagine the following scenario. What's your name? Devorah, right, Devorah. Try to imagine, you're sitting in shul, in the Bet Knesset, somebody walks into the Bet Knesset and slaughters a chazir in front of the Hechal. That would be considered a great defilement, no? But guess what? According to everything we're saying, and according to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, the Jewish home is more kadosh than a shul, right? So today, unfortunately, in many Jewish homes, there's what we call an open door policy, where anything is allowed to enter. But every Jewish home needs to have what I call good hashgacha. Not only on the food you eat, but also concerning the ideas, the music, the mentality, the culture that isn't in line with Torah values. So let's put it this way. We could all agree that certain things don't belong in a Bet Knesset, right? Nachon, we all in agreement? Tell me if we're not, because then I get out my other chess pieces. I'm assuming, Devorah, that if you're sitting in that same shul and somebody walked in right in front of you into the men's section and they hung up on top of the hechal a picture of an immodest woman there, what would you walk over to the person and say? Would you say, oh wow, she looks great? What would you say?
Horrible.
You would say, excuse me, what is this? What is this? And imagine them telling you, oh, Devorah, we decided to redecorate. We're remodeling the Bet Knesset. You say, what? This picture doesn't belong here. This is a sacred place. You would tell that person, do me a favor. Please take this immodest painting off of the wall and never bring it into this Bet Knesset again. Right? We would say that, yes or no? That wouldn't happen necessarily. This is to answer your question in Reform Shul, by the way.
I was kidding, actually.
But and here's another example, Devorah. Imagine you're on your way to the ladies section. You want to now go sit in the ladies section. It's Erev Yom Kippur. You're about to go into the Kol Nidrei ceremony. And you find a stand on your way in with the latest Vogue magazine, free for the taking while you're davening Kol Nidrei. What would you wonder? You say, what in heaven's name is this Vogue magazine, a modest thing, doing in a holy place like this Bet Knesset? It doesn't belong in a house of worship. It even belongs in a trash can. So we all understand that there are certain standards of holiness in a Bet Knesset, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
But we're not familiar with the idea that a Jewish home has the same status as a Bet Knesset. If we wouldn't want to see certain items or hear certain things in a Bet Knesset, the same holds true for the Jewish home. We have to be very, very careful what we allow into the house. Otherwise, the Shekhinah won't want to be present, and then chaval, we're going to miss out on all the brachot that come with God's presence. So my chidush for you, this is mine, not Rav Levi Yitzchak. I say we need to supervise our homes to ensure that it retains its kedusha. We have to be the mashgichot over our homes. So I'm asking you, Stella, what's hashgacha pratit? You've heard that term before. Mm-hmm. What's hashgacha pratit?
I don't know how to explain it. You have hashgacha in a specific sense.
It's divine supervision, and the type of supervision that it is, it's like you said, it's prati, it's individualized, it's unique to you, to the person. So this is my chidush over here. If we want to see and feel the hashgacha pratit in our life, then we have to perform a hashgacha pratit over our own homes. Means if we would take the time to supervise our individual homes and ensure that the kedusha of the home is preserved, you know what would happen? Midah keneged midah. Hashem would say, oh, Stella, you were mashgiach over your bayit prati, your private and individual home, and you saw to it that the kedusha of Am Yisrael is maintained. I'm going to see to it that you are individually supervised by me. So that being said, the ikar of the Jewish home's responsibility lies with the woman more than the man. That's what we said before earlier. Now, I don't want to pressure you ladies, but I want to prove to you that what I'm saying is true. the Gemara says that the house is the woman's domain. And for that reason, a woman is called Akeret Habayit. The word Akeret comes from the word Ikar, which means primary. The word Bait means a home. So a woman is the Akeret Habayit. She's the minister, the manager, and the administrator of the Jewish home. Chachamim tell us that the Ohel is synonymous with a woman. An Ohel is a woman. If somebody called you a tent, would you get offended? Maybe you'd get a little offended. Am I a tent? No. Chachamim say, don't get offended. Don't get offended. Why? Because when the Jewish people finished receiving the Torah, not before, afterwards, they were at Har Sinai. For 3 days after, the men were not allowed to be with their wives for reasons of purity. But after Matan Torah was over, those 3 days were over, what did Hashem tell the men? He told them, Shuvu lachem le'ohalechem. Go back to your tents. The Gemara asks, what do you mean, your tents? So Chachamim say that was Hashem's way of telling the men, they can now go back to their wives. You can now go back and you're now permitted to behave as man and wife. Hashem didn't say, Shuvu lachem leneshechem or leneshotechem. He didn't say go back to your wives. Rather, he asked the men to return to their tents. That means that in Hashem's dictionary, an ohel and a woman are synonymous. And for good reason, because the women are the administrators of the home. So therefore, when Bilam came along and he said, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, he was referring to the Jewish home as an ohel. And I think he called it an ohel because he was hinting that the reason why the ohel is tov is because the responsibility lies with the woman. Matovu ohalecha, it's the Jewish woman who sets the standards in the home. And you see that it's true. You see that it's true because when did the lights of the candles return inside Sarah's tent? When? Not when Yitzchak walked in, but when Rivka walked back into the tent. When she walked in, boom, the lights returned, the Shekhinah rested above the tent, the dough miraculously remained fresh all the time. So from here we see that the primary responsibility of the home lies with the woman. You with me so far? Yeah. So far, so good. Gotta take you, we're climbing the mountains now. Now, when Am Yisrael built the first Mishkan, there was a week of preparation before they were actually able to inaugurate the Mishkan. The 7 days before the inauguration were referred to as the 7 days of Miluim. The Miluim involved Moshe Rabbeinu constructing the Mishkan, taking it apart, and making all sorts of preparations. That to see how it's going to function, how it's going to work. And then the Mishkan was inaugurated on the 8th day. So 7 days of preparation. That's the case. We have a good remez to the Jewish home. Because when we build a new Jewish home, what does our tradition mandate? The first week, right after a wedding, meaning right before the Chatan and Kala set out on their journey, new journey of new marriage, we have what's called Sheva Berachot. The first week of marriage is not like any other week. We're obligated to make a special seudah, special seudot. We recite special blessings. The Chatan and Kala, they don't go to work during that week. They spend quality time together. But why would we make a week of celebrations? I mean, we have enough holidays that last 7 days. We have Sukkot, we have Pesach. Why all of a sudden do we need 7 days for a Chatan and Kala? It's okay, I'm not looking for an answer. If you want to, wonderful. I'll tell you, I'll make it easy for you. If a person understands that getting married means he's about to construct a mishkan, a sanctuary, if you realize the correlation between a home and a mishkan, if you know that you're building achat mechurvot Yerushalayim, which is the Bet HaMikdash we established, then you need 7 days of celebration. So the 7 days of Sheva Berachot actually correspond to the 7 days of the Miluim, the preparatory stages of the inauguration of the Mishkan. So, you got that? With this in mind, I want to tell you a story that took place in Yerushalayim about 100 years ago. The Rav of Yerushalayim at the time was a very big tzaddik by the name of Rav Shmuel Salant, alav shalom. He was getting very old and very frail, and it had come time for someone to replace him as the rabbi of Yerushalayim. And now there was another rabbi living in Lithuania, in Europe. His name was the Aderet. Aderet stands for Eliyahu David Rabinovich Teumim, the Aderet. Famous holy Aderet was the rabbi of a city called Panovich. So Rav Salant knew that the Aderet was a great man, so he called on him to travel from Lithuania to Yerushalayim in order to take over his position. And the Aderet accepted the invitation, despite the long and difficult trip, because back then they had to travel by boat. On the day that the Aderet arrived in Yerushalayim, Rav Shmuel Salant went out to greet him. Now that was considered a big deal because the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim coming out to greet the younger rabbi, it's a big deal. Anyway, the Aderet was understandably exhausted from the trip, and Rav Salant told him like this. He says, I know you just arrived from a very long journey, but tonight we have a wedding in Yerushalayim, and you're going to be the Mesader Kiddushin. You're going to officiate that wedding. The Aderet was in no position to officiate a wedding. He's exhausted. He just came off the boat, literally. But Rav Salant insisted, you're going to officiate. So he accepted. He said, okay. Tov. So now, the Aderet is standing under the chuppah. He picks up the kos, he picks up the glass, and he begins to recite the beracha. Chatan and Kala are there, everybody's there, and he says, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Shehakol Nihiya Bidvaro. Oops. The Rav made a mistake. Does anybody happy made a mistake? But he immediately caught himself. Oh, and he started again. Baruch Ata Hashem Borei Peri HaGefen. And he proceeded with the chuppah. Of course, the students there from Yerushalayim, they were shocked. Not that he recited the wrong bracha, because that's a mistake that can happen to anybody, especially a person who traveled all the way from Panovich and just arrived that day on the boat. Human beings make mistakes. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that the Aderet made a halachic mistake. Now for the next 5 minutes we are learning halacha. Isn't that amazing? What was the mistake? Listen to this very carefully now. The halacha says, if you accidentally recited a shehakol nihiya bidvaro on grape juice or wine, by accident, it happens, it still counts. You don't have to say the real bracha again. It counts. Really, really, you shouldn't recite a shehakol on wine. Like, don't go home now and say, oh, from now on I'm reciting shehakol. No, it's accidentally. Really, you shouldn't. But if you made a mistake, it's okay. It's still counted as a good bracha. You don't have to say another bracha. You don't have to say borei peri hagafen.
What's the big deal? I understand in this case he was a big rabbi, but if I make a mistake and I say wrong, and if I stop and start again at the right row, is that
No, because he said.
So now we're getting to it. You see what you? I'm so happy you're asking these questions because the answer is right here.
What happened? He said bracha levatala.
We're gonna get there. So the students approached the Aderet and they said, "Listen, we understand you made a mistake, and you accidentally recited Asher Hakol. But why did you recite another bracha Borei Pri HaGefen when you really don't have to? That second bracha was now a bracha levatala. Didn't need to be recited.
For everybody that was there, that some people wouldn't.
We're going to get there. So these students now, they thought, they caught the new rabbi in some big blunder, and now they could prove that he was not worthy to be the rabbi of Yerushalayim. Look at him, because every child knew this halakha, so what excuse could he possibly give? Even if the Rav was tired, he couldn't possibly have forgotten a halakha that's learned in 2nd grade. So the Aderet smiled, and he told the students the following. He said, there's a reason why I did what I did. He says, you see, at a wedding, we recite 2 main blessings. Borei Pri HaGefen, and then Asher Kidishanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu. And words. At the end of that bracha is Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh Amo Yisrael Al Yidei Chuppah V'Kiddushin. He says, my dear students, the Ramban says, and the Rambam also, it's a mitzvah to get married. Asher Kidishanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu. It's a commandment to get married. When a young man gets married, he should know that he's fulfilling a commandment from the Torah to get married. It's his mitzvah. So I ask you, dear students, if it's the Chatan's mitzvah to get married, why doesn't the Chatan himself recite the blessing? After all, he's the one getting married, not me, not the rabbi. Good question?
Yes.
So he says, when a man puts on tefillin in the morning, he's the one who recites the bracha over the tefillin. Does he go over to the rabbi and tell him, do me a favor, can you make the bracha of the tefillin for me now? It's his mitzvah. When you light candles Friday night, that's your mitzvah. Do you call your neighbor over to say, do me a favor, I'm about to light, can you make the bracha for me? No, right? So he says, so why is it that at a wedding the bracha is being recited by me, by the rabbi, and not the chatan? It's his mitzvah. Why? So the halakha says like this. You ready? You ready? You ready for this one? The halakha says, actually, in the olden days, the chatan did recite all the brachot.
That's cool.
If you attended a wedding over 500 years ago, you would see the chatan under the chuppah, holding the kos himself, and reciting the brachot. Borei Pri HaGefen. And then he would look at the kala and recite the bracha, Asher Kidishanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu, and the whole works. Then he would take the ring by himself and present it to his bride and say, Hare'at Mekudeshet Li V'chule. You need a rabbi back then to be a mesader kiddushin. The chatan did everything all by himself. What changed? Something changed. Eventually, there were chatanim, and it's very sad, who didn't know how to recite the brachot. Not every chatan came to the chuppah and all of a sudden knew how to read. Not every chatan was learned enough to know the brachot by heart. The poor chatan began to make mistakes under the chuppah. So people at the wedding started to wonder about this chatan. Who is this guy? The bride all of a sudden became embarrassed and she regretted marrying a guy who can't even recite Borei Pri HaGefen. So for the sake of not wanting to embarrass any chatan out there, the Rabbanim decided to introduce the idea of a mesader kiddushin, someone who would officiate over the wedding. By the way, they say the rabbi who's officiating over the wedding technically should take the chatan aside and he should tell him, he should say, Chatan, I'm reciting these brachot on your behalf because really, you should be the one reciting them. So I am your shaliach here tonight. I am going to be your a mediator, your messenger, so to speak. So now that you have the background, the chidush of the Aderet is a big chidush because he asks like this. When is it considered okay that you accidentally recited a shehakol on wine instead of borei pri hagafen? When is it okay? And he says, the halacha says it's okay if you recited the bracha for yourself. You just now took a glass of wine or some grape juice for you. You were thirsty, whatever. You had an event, l'chaim, whatever. And now you're making the bracha for you. And you accidentally, instead of saying borei pri hagafen, you said shehakol. It's okay. You don't have to say borei pri hagafen again. But if you're reciting for somebody else, on behalf of somebody else, and you made a mistake, then it doesn't count. Meaning you have to say another bracha. So the Yadera told those students, I'm not reciting over here borei pri hagafen for me, for myself. I'm doing it on behalf of who? The Chatan. Yeah, but what's the difference if it's for yourself or the Chatan? Says the Aderet. When the Chatan appoints me as his messenger, as his shaliach, he's doing that because he wants this mitzvah to be performed 100% perfectly, in the correct manner. He doesn't want me to do a mitzvah with mistakes. He doesn't want a shehakol wedding. So when I recited the bracha shehakol, that was a mistake. The mitzvah was not performed correctly. Therefore, my job as a shaliach and the connection between me and the chatan was now broken. That's why I had to recite the proper bracha again, because if I wouldn't have recited it again, this poor chatan could have claims that his wedding ceremony was deficient in some way and that my shlichut was not performed correctly. Nobody wants a shehakol wedding. They want the wedding that it's supposed to be without mistakes, perfect. I want chuppah v'kiddushin. I can't do it. You're going to do it for me. I want to be perfect. That was the greatness of the Aderet. You with me still?
Yeah, but yeah.
That's the halacha.
But, okay.
Now, based on what we just learned, remember we just learned, what would you say to the following case? You're home. Your husband came home Motzei Shabbat from the Bet Knesset, and he's making havdalah for you and all the kids, the entire family. So now he's the shaliach for your family. He picks up the kos and he makes the beracha. Baruch ata Hashem shehakol nihiya bidvaro. Oh, what do you say after having learned what we just learned from the Aderet? Based on the rule we just learned, the bracha, that bracha shouldn't be considered valid, right? Because there's a shaliach reciting a blessing on behalf of others. It has to be recited the right way, right? So should another bracha be recited? Yes. The correct bracha? Yes or no? Yes. Raise your hand if you say yes, it should be recited again. Okay.
There's a catch to
According to what we just learned, right? Yes. So Chachamim say the answer is no, we don't do it again.
Because you said before, it counts like if it's accidentally counts.
But not only if you're making it for yourself. But now in this case, no, you don't. Why? So Chachamim tell us that the Aderet was referring to the specific case of a wedding and not any other time, not any other ceremony. The halacha says, if a man accidentally made a shehakol nihiya bidvaro on wine during havdalah instead of borei pri hagafen, the bracha is still okay. Here's the next question. What's the difference between the case of a wedding and havdalah? Because in both cases you have somebody who's been designated as a shaliach.
Because one is mandated from Hashem and the other one is not. Kind of.
No, one is,
Okay, I could see that as a possible solution.
one is like a third.
For himself as well.
Maybe because
That's also good.
At all.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like this one. I like that
What
explanation.
about maybe during Havdalah, you don't necessarily, if you don't have grape juice, you can maybe use a different drink like.
That's something else. That's when you don't have it at all.
Okay.
Okay. So, but Chachamim say there is a big difference between a wedding and Havdalah. There's a big difference, and that's why the laws change. I'll explain it to you this way so you understand. Thousands of years ago, when the Greeks entered the Bet HaMikdash and they defiled it, like we said, the Bet HaMikdash was out of service, so to speak. So it was no longer it wasn't in functionable use. But the Maccabim took up arms, they pushed back the Greeks, and they recaptured the Bet HaMikdash. However, since the Bet HaMikdash hadn't been used for many months, they needed to sanctify it all over again. That's why we celebrate Hanukkah. We call it Chanukah HaMizbeach, right? Hanukkah means the re-inauguration of the Bet HaMikdash. Chanukah HaMizbeach. When the Maccabim recaptured the Bet HaMikdash and they entered, they saw that everything was defiled and impure, and there was no oil to light the menorah. And even if there was oil, it was all impure. So they searched and searched, and they found a little canister of oil that hadn't been defiled, that was meant to last for 1 day, and it lasted for 8 days. Everyone was so excited, and they wondered, what would we have done if we wouldn't have found this oil? Right? Be'emet, what would they have done if they wouldn't have found that oil? You know what the Pnei Yoshua says they would have done? He says that the halakha is that if the people who defiled the oil were all impure type people, they were all impure, these were Greeks, you're still allowed to light the menorah with impure oil. Still considered okay. Valid. It's called, listen to the halakha, Tuma Hutra Betzibur, which means, it's a famous halakha, which means the halakha is, if the majority of the people are impure, they touch the oil, it's okay. If most of them were impure, we could let it go, we use the oil. Now listen to this. If that's the case, so what's the big miracle of Hanukkah? Technically, we could have used that impure oil that was defiled by the Greeks. So what's the big deal that they found this one pach shemen? You hear the question? So let's go through the scenario. Let's go through the scenario. Imagine that they're all looking for pure oil, and they can't seem to find not even one pach shemen. What would they have done? They would still have lit the menorah, because like we said, the halakha is you're allowed to use the impure oil if the majority of the people who defiled it were all tameh. It's okay. So again, so what's the big deal that they found this pach shemen? Chachamim say, what's the big deal? Because either way, they would have been able to light the menorah. The Kotzker Rebbe, Alav Shalom, provides us with an incredible answer to this question, which is based on a principle. What's the principle? Sometimes in life, you could rely on just getting by. You hear what I told you? Sometimes you're allowed to rely on what we call a halachic loophole, on some halachic leniency, depending on the situation. However, when you are starting something from the beginning, at its inception, the foundation must always be the original halakha without any compromise or deficiency. When you're starting something from scratch, there is no room for imperfection. I'll give you an example. Let's say we are constructing a tall building. You are the owner. You're the one who's contracted to do this. And when we get to the 71st floor, you notice that the builders didn't put one of the windows in perfectly. It's not perfect. So he asked the builder, oh, by the way, I don't know, something's wrong here. Is this okay? And he says, yeah, no, we could get away with it. It's okay. And you said, but is it dangerous? He says, no, it's not dangerous. And you say, well, shouldn't it be put in better? I mean, it's not exactly perfect. And the builder says, no, well, yeah, of course it would be preferable, but you can leave it like this because we're still going to get the final approval for the building. Nothing's going to happen. Don't worry, you can leave it. And you leave it. But then there's one area of the building that you're not allowed to make even the smallest mistake. What's that area?
The pillars that hold the whole thing?
The foundation.
Foundation, yeah.
The foundation.
Otherwise,
When you're building the foundation for a building, it cannot be 75% okay. In such a case, the builder, if it's 75% okay, the builder will have to take everything apart and start all over again until the foundation is 100% perfect. Why? Because that is the yesod. It's the foundation. And the foundation is something you cannot compromise on. You can compromise on any other part of the building, but not the foundation. You hear? Mm-hmm. So the Kotzker Rebbe said, in Yahadut, in Judaism, anytime you are starting a foundation, there, in that place, there mustn't be any compromise. It has to be halachically perfect. So while it's true that if the majority of the people were impure, and you can still use the impure oil to light the menorah, but in what case would that be allowed? That would be allowed if the Bet HaMikdash was functioning normally and was in its usual state, then it's permissible to use impure oil. But in this case of Hanukkah, we were re-inaugurating the Bet HaMikdash. We were not continuing the service, the avodah. It was actually the beginning of the avodah, because the Bet HaMikdash, like we said, was out of service for so long. So when the Hashmonaim came back to the Bet HaMikdash, it was like starting from scratch. When you're starting from scratch, when you're starting from the very beginning, you cannot rely anymore on halachic leniencies. It has to be done perfectly. That's why they needed the pure oil, because there's a big difference between Chanukat HaMizbeach and the continuation of the Mizbeach. You see the difference? So Hanukkah was actually the groundbreaking ceremony, so to speak. And when something is groundbreaking, we cannot leave room for mistakes. So you now understand me? So I want to end with like this. Based on what we just learned from the Kotzker Rebbe, we could say the following. There is a difference between reciting a bracha for Havdalah and for a wedding. If a man made the Havdalah for his family and he accidentally recited the bracha of Shehakol Niyah Bidvaro, it's okay. The Shehakol counts. It's called B'diavad. And the man can still be considered a good shaliach for his family. But a wedding is the foundation. A wedding is the beginning of the Chatan and Kala starting a new chapter in their life. The wedding is not a continuation of some event unless the couple lives together, which is a no-no. But the wedding is not a continuation. When you are starting something from scratch, the Chatan is going to be makpid on what happens under that chuppah. He's going to say, listen, I don't want the beginning of our foundation of marriage to simply pass with a she'akol niyah bidvaro. I want the real deal. Yeah. Therefore, says the Aderet, specifically at a wedding, there is no room for mistakes. That's why he recited the bracha again. And that's the connection between this entire shi'ur and what Bilam said about the Jewish people. He said, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Maybe he meant to say that just like when you're constructing the Mishkan from the start It has to be done perfectly because there's no room for legal loopholes and leniencies. The same is true with Ohalecha Yaakov. The Ohel of Yaakov is no less important than the Mishkan. Therefore, the Jewish home has to be built from its inception without any compromises and any leniencies. If the foundation of a Jewish home is chas v'shalom compromised, then it can be dangerous because you can build on top of a faulty foundation. And if that's true, it might explain another fascinating halakha that you're all familiar with. You learned a lot of halachot tonight. Chachamim tell us that on the day that a man and woman gets married, all their sins are forgiven. Right? It says, Chatan mochalin lo al kol avonotav. That's something amazing because we know that one day a year that we're guaranteed forgiveness. What's that day? Yom Kippurim. But no, we're told, if there's a Chatan who's getting married tonight, he receives a gift from Hashem. All the sins he ever committed from the time that he was Bar Mitzvah until that present day are forgiven. The Chatan and Kala by extension. Hashem gives them a wedding gift. Hashem gives them a wedding gift. What's the wedding gift? Delete. How could that be?
So if you're married again,
But how could that be? Is getting what? Getting married? How could that be? Is getting married a kaparat avonot? It's a kapara. Some people think, but met a kaparat avonot. So what's the reason that the sins are erased on the day that we get married? Very good. The answer is that the Chatan and Kala are starting their marriage now. They cannot begin a brand new chapter in their life with past history and all the averot. I mean, how can you begin the foundation of a Jewish home with all this baggage? So Borei Olam gives the couple a gift. He doesn't offer the Chatan and Kala a $500 bond, a brand new bash, or a check for $180. He gives the couple something more valuable. He says, on the day you marry, you are going to be reborn. You're going to begin again from new. So when a couple enters the chuppah, and not only that, after that, when they'll enter the threshold of their new home on that night, they will be like tzaddikim. Hashem offers them a chance to reset their past and start again. Why? Because if it wouldn't be done that way, the foundation of that marriage would be compromised. They would start building on a faulty foundation. And what happens when you build on a faulty foundation? Everything's going to collapse eventually. So you know what we learn, ladies? That there's a great blessing we sometimes take for granted. And that's the Jewish home. The Jewish home is something that is very integral to our survival as a nation. We've lived without a Bet Mikdash for thousands of years, but we still have the Jewish home. Do you ever think about that? And what's taken the place of the Bet Mikdash for thousands of years?
No.
The Beit Yehudi, the Jewish home. So it's incumbent upon us women to reflect on our own homes. And of course we wish any Chatan and Kala out there, Be'ezat Hashem, hold on a second, Be'ezat Hashem, Eliana Yafa Rivka Bat Esther, and Liora Dodi Bat Esther, that first of all, any Chatan and Kala out there to build a Bait Ne'eman. Ne'eman means loyal. Loyal to what?
Hashem.
Loyal to the traditions, loyal to the mitzvot, loyal to the Torah, loyal to Hashem, loyal to all the nuances that bring the Shekhinah into the house. When the Mishkan was built, Hashem said, Ve'asu li mikdash ve'shachanti. Interesting wording. What words does the Chatan recite to his Kala under a chuppah? He says, Hare at mekudeshet li. ועשו לי מקדש, הרי את מקודשת לי. You see, these are very similar words to the ones used when Am Yisrael were about to build the Mishkan. ועשו לי מקדש.
Which means?
The first one means ועשו לי מקדש. Hashem was saying, build for me a sanctuary, ושכנתי, so that I could dwell in it. When a man gets married, he understands that this is a moment that's mekudash. And after the Chatan gives the Kala the ring, what does everybody yell out? Everyone yells, Mekudeshet! Mekudeshet! There's a Kiddushin over here. It's the idea of V'asu li mikdash, V'asu li mikdash. You're building for me a sanctuary. And what's the result of this Kiddushin if it's maintained? The end of the Pasuk, V'shachante betocham. I can then, the Shekhinah then comes down and rests in the home of that couple. And that's what Bilam meant when he said, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Bilam saw with his prophetic eye the secret of Jewish survival for the future, which is the preservation of the Jewish home. As long as the Jewish home is preserved, then Am Yisrael can exist even without a Bet Mikdash. We see that we still exist. But imagine when the Bet HaMikdash is rebuilt, those Jewish homes that are being maintained in the proper way are going to be uprooted again and brought to Eretz Yisrael. All those Jewish homes that were ne'eman to Hashem, loyal to His laws, loyal to His statutes and traditions, they're going to merit to be relocated. We want to build a binyan adeh ad, which means it's possible for a Jewish home to be eternal if it's built on Torah and mitzvot. So yeh ratzon that we should be worthy to have loyal Jewish homes that will merit to one day stand close to the ultimate bait in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. Amen ken, yeh ratzon.